We're live. Hi, good afternoon. This is Judy Bonilla with Encore Chat. And in today's interview, I have marketing expert, serial entrepreneur, Felena Hanson. Now, my connection with Felena Hanson is that I am a part of her co-working space and have enjoyed the privileges and I'll say the benefits of being able to network with so many people and also have a great role model. So in this show, we're going to learn about Felena's new book, Flight Club, find out a little bit more about the 17 steps to a startup, and also find out what projects she has going on. So with that, Felena, I'm going to turn it over to you for a self-introduction and anything I might have missed. Welcome.
Perfect. Felena. Yeah, thank you so much, Judy. Really appreciate it. Yeah, excited to share the new book specifically for a lot of folks who have written books before me. They know the process of here's the way I say it. I meet a lot of people that are like, I'm writing a book, I'm writing a book, I'm writing a book. It's one thing to say you're writing a book and get, 70%, 80%. It's a whole nother thing to actually just like put it into the world, so to speak. So my book is into the world, it's published, it's available online. And that is something I'm very, very proud of because I'm frankly I don't fancy myself a writer per se. I can write, but most of the writing I've done throughout my life and career has been business writing, so to speak. So very factual, concise. And so sharing my story and the stories of over a dozen female entrepreneurs, I needed to be less concise. And so It was a great learning process going through the opportunity to share my story and then, editing and proofreading and publishing and whatnot. So just at the beginning of the journey that it's released and into the world, it's taken flight. And I'm very excited about that.
Great. Well, I want to dig a little bit deeper because you mentioned something that I think will resonate with a lot of people, that you had a book inside of you. When did you start this book and about how long, like from the inception of the idea to actually getting it on paper?
Yeah, inception of the idea, it depends on how you define that. So like everybody in the world, we all have a story, right? And, things have happened to us. They might be physical, they might be emotional, they may be both. And, I like to say, and the way I kind of kicked off this journey was doing a TED Talk on this particular topic. And so that things happen to us, but those things shouldn't define who we are. And I think it speaks to your platform, Judy, which is reinvention. And that is right up front and center as the tagline of my book, so to speak. The subtitle of my book is Rebel, Reinvent, and Thrive, How to Launch Your Dream Business. It really came for me of going through some of those bumps in the road and how to reinvent myself through that. And so when you ask me, inception of the idea, it's something I've thought about for a long time, but when I really decided to make it happen was when I did have an opportunity to do that TED Talk at TEDx Encinitas, titled it Flight Club. And it was kind of my stake in the ground to say, I'm putting the story out there. And I'm going to start to build a brand and a platform around this name, so to speak. So it was 2 years ago that I started the process. So for some that's quick and for some that's a long time to write a book.
Right. Wow. So going back to that TED Talk, because I've seen it out there, but I haven't watched it. So now I'm curious. I will watch it and I'll make sure and post it in the notes as well. I find personally that how I talk is different than I write. How is that for you? And I'm really trying to tie the two together. What was your experience with that?
Yeah, so the process I went through, Judy, because again, I'm not a natural born writer from a storytelling perspective, is I actually was July 4th, 2 years ago, so 2014, that I went into our video room at Hera Hub when everybody was out, barbecuing and having fun on the beach. I was like, as an entrepreneur, this is a perfect day to get something done. And I went into the video room for 8 hours and shot 8 hours of video of my entire story. I just told my whole story on video in 8 hours. Then I had a woman that I had been referred to who's overseas transcribe that. And then I worked with a friend of mine who has shepherded, I don't think that's a word, but you know what I mean, assisted folks in book writing to take that content. I massaged it a bit, and then she continued to massage it. So it wasn't a chronological timeline of my life. It was more a story. So that was my process in particular. So how I speak and how I write is actually exactly the same. And that's probably part of the problem.
And that's your unique voice.
Yeah.
And I think for everyone who's got a book out there, I just had one request that we speak a little slower. So I will do my best to speak a little slower. And that way, again, you get the message, because that's really why we're here sharing this. And again, the conversation is about Felena's new book, Flight Club. And this is for startup and entrepreneurs. And her voice in this book, as you heard, it took her 2 years from the beginning with a TED Talk to spending time and recording herself to broadening that. And so you mentioned earlier you have 12 entrepreneurs in your book. So share with us that process and what perhaps you learned along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few over 12, I think it's 14 featured stories in the book. So the intention for this book, I'll just back up if I may a little bit, and I'll try to slow down because I know I speak quickly. The intention of this book, the target audience, if you will, it was really designed for the woman or gentleman, but it's certainly focused on women, who is feeling stuck in corporate, feeling stuck in their work environment, and wants to break free and potentially wants to launch a business, but doesn't quite know what steps to take, or even kind of how to get to that point of knowing, how do I know if I have a good idea? How do I look at where my passions and my strengths and my interests can intersect with market opportunity, frankly? So that really is who I'm trying to speak to in the book. It certainly could be a tool for somebody who's already started a business as well. But those stories that you mentioned, there are a number of contributors, many of whom who are Hera Hub members, that are contributing their what we call their lean out story. In complete opposite to leaning in, like Sheryl Sandberg. Right. I'm recommending you lean out and start your own business. Yeah. So stories, those lean out moments, and then stories and exercises from women in a number of categories as it relates to fighting fear, starting an entrepreneurial venture. Working independently can be risky, certainly, and your tolerance of risk is, I think, for women in particular, we tend to be a little more risk adverse. Not always, but that's been my experience. Also looking at, what are your strengths and how do you analyze the strengths as it relates to starting a business? Passion, of course. How do you find or reveal your passion? I have a few contributors talking about that particular section. So taking the reader through all the areas, the thought processes, so to speak, around, again, fear and mindset and passion and strengths and visioning. So they can, hopefully by the end of that second section, have a good sense of what they might be willing to move forward with. I'll make one reference to the title, and then I'll talk about the end of the book. So Flight Club, not to be confused with the late 90s movie with Brad Pitt and Edward Norton called Fight Club. So, but obviously I'm playing off of that title, that movie. And it really has to, for me, this is not only my personal story, but the story of entrepreneurship is taking flight, so to speak. You know, I often make the analogy of starting a business is like taking flight. And sometimes we say, you know, we're flying the plane as we build it, right? As an entrepreneur, because we don't exactly know what we're doing. And so that certainly that connotation of taking flight for me, for myself personally, I have quite an interesting childhood, and I grew up with peacocks. That was my first entrepreneurial venture, was selling peacock feathers on the corner store in Arroyo Grande, California. And so my mom's also she ran a zoo, and you know, this thread of animals in my life was a big part of who I am, so to speak. So, and then the club piece is very much about, you know, community, connection, feeling like you have that sense of community when you're, you know, doing something that can be scary for folks. So, so that's the title of the book. My story is about rebellion, reinvention, and thriving, so to speak, as it relates to starting a business. And then I'll speak to the back of the book, and then I know we've got a question that popped up, so I'll let you address that, Judy. Yeah.
We do. I was just going to say, yeah. So I'm actually going to stop it because I think this is a good segue, because you talked about earlier, Sheryl Sandberg, leaning in, your philosophy of leaning out. It's Liz. Liz, thank you for asking the question. Does every woman need to be an entrepreneur? Does every man need to be an entrepreneur? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I'm just kidding. No, the answer is no, of course. You know, frankly, I don't think most people are built to be entrepreneurs, to be honest. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like an elitist, but you have to be able to be willing to, you know, take risk. You have to be willing to really do the hard work. Entrepreneurship is not easy. I don't care how many fancy motivational speaker conferences you go to where they tell you, you know, hey, just do these 5 things on Facebook and you'll make, you know, 10 grand a month. Sorry, baloney. That is not reality. They're just trying to sell you their expensive coaching program, you know, so they can make money off of you, right? It's a lot of hard work. If you're not willing and, you know, committed to potentially working 78 hours a week for more than 1 week, then you probably should not be an entrepreneur. Now, I want to make the distinction. The word entrepreneurship is, it's a hot word right now, if you will, right? Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. I blame it on Shark Tank partially. You know, it's cool to create something and pitch it, and you know, you're famous once you do so, etc. Not everybody is an entrepreneur. The way I use that word very loosely, and a lot of people do use that word entrepreneur very loosely. Truly, if you wanted to break it down, an entrepreneur, for most people who are in business, is somebody that's building something that is bigger than themselves, something that's scalable. And so I use some different phrasing. Typically, I'll say, you know, the other categories is freelancer, consultant, independent work. Those to some extent describe a lot of folks that are in this, you know, independent work category, so to speak. So again, I use it very broadly. Most people do, but if you wanted to get technical, there are a lot of people that are building what kind of get called a lifestyle business, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, that word. What's wrong with having an awesome lifestyle? But if you were going to get into a conversation with a venture capitalist, you know, he's going to say, oh, that's a lifestyle business. That's not something we would ever invest in. That's okay. You don't need, most of us don't need venture capital, nor do we want it. So, but to answer the question, and I'll wrap up with, yeah, not everybody is designed to be an entrepreneur, nor do they have the drive, the motivation, the follow-through skills, the tenacity, the accountability, frankly. You know, if you go from a big structured environment to working in your spare bedroom by yourself and you can do whatever you want, a lot of people have a challenge with, you know, really staying on task and setting big goals and achieving those. So I do address some of that in the book, and I try to give people the best platform possible to be successful, but it's not for everybody.
And that's so interesting. I have an opposing view that I'll share, and that I think it benefits all of us to be an entrepreneur, not only from a business aspect, but from a personal development. Again, we're living longer, we're living better and with more energy. And my thought is, can you imagine if you're going to live to be 100 and you retire at 60 with no passion? And I hope everyone heard what Felena said when she said somebody building something bigger than themselves, something that's scalable. So that might even be a movement, something that you're passionate about, something that you believe in. And what I do know about people who age well are those who are socially connected. So if you can imagine yourself, maybe you do retire from a certain career or are propelled to retire, that you then become an entrepreneur in something that you are passionate about and connect with those people who share your vision, your dream. So I think for me, entrepreneur has an even bigger message in that it can actually improve so many other variables. And not, I'm all about living well and ROI and bottom line, but I also know there's that certain something that gets you up in the morning that makes you dream bigger dreams and connect.
That's a good,
yes, we do have opinions.
And I appreciate that. And I mean, truly my hope is that everybody becomes an entrepreneur. Of course, I'm so passionate about, being independent and being able to build your own dreams and launch those into the world. Again, it's not easy, but it's so rewarding. I do think, though, I want to add to what you're talking about, Judy, because so sometimes what I'll say to somebody when I meet them at an event, I won't ask them if they're an entrepreneur or a business owner or a freelancer or a consultant. I'll say, are you a free agent? Kind of a sports term, right? And that connotation of being a free agent could mean all of the things that I just mentioned. In other words, are you working independently? And we see that trend, to your point. We see this trend in kind of the encorepreneur. I have a ton of experience and lots of things to give and share. I don't, want to just go play golf every day. I mean, it gets boring after a while. And then the other side of the spectrum, we're almost sandwiching this concept of free agent or the gig economy is coming up in the millennials, the 20-somethings. I meet young women and men all the time. I was just, I spoke at UCSD last night for their Entrepreneur Challenge event. And I had a dozen girls come up to me afterwards who, I say girls because they're like 21, 22, 23 years old, and they'd already started a business. I mean, this was like, and it wasn't even second. Now they were also driving for Uber on the side and doing some social media for some friends on the side and doing this on the side, but this idea of like, I'm going to go work for this company and sit in a cubicle is just like not even on their radar, which is so awesome. So I think we're seeing this like narrowing toward the middle of the, 40 somethings, the Gen Xers like myself coming to life.
Yeah, I do have a question that I did want to make sure we covered. It's from Jonathan Denwood. Thanks for joining us, Jonathan. Felena, what in your mind are two of the biggest and most often mistakes you see people make who are trying to start their business?
Ooh, there's 1,000. Top two.
You just heard it. There's 1,000. Pick your number one. What do you think? I'll ask for your number one.
Gosh, it's going to be impossible for me to do one or two, to be honest. So I'll throw a few out there if I may. Drive, tenacity, just willing to stick with it. I see a lot of people, they get 80% of the percent there and they just kind of give up. It's like, I can't do this. This is too hard. Not assessing the market. I met a woman last night, and she's, talking about this app she wants to build, and like, I know there's like 17 of those exact same things on the market, and I'm not going to be rude and say, have you done your market research? Are you sure that there's a need for this in the market? But just not really taking the time to really study the market. There's always a gap. There's always an opportunity. There's plenty of co-working spaces out there. We just found a niche in the market that really, really works, and we really focus on that, so to speak. And then some of what I address in the book in the last section, which is that steps to startup platform, which is really the foundational pieces. People get really excited about, their idea, and they kind of just, go for it to some extent, which you do need to do to some extent in business. You need to go for it. Analysis paralysis, we don't want to get to that point. But they get a year in their business, and they really haven't thought about some of the basics, the foundational, pieces in building your business. Like, I always use this example, but I meet people all the time that'll come into Hera Hub, and they're like 9 months, a year into their business, and they've never even heard about what quarterly, estimated taxes are, and the fact that, hey, you're essentially on the hook for, a lot of extra taxes that your employer used to pay that now you're paying, self-employment tax and things of that nature. And it's, well, no one ever told me. There's great organizations like SCORE out there that will tell you, but the problem is it's overwhelming for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's just, there's so much information out online and coming at it at the same time. So that's why I developed the Steps to Startup platform. It's a step-by-step, kind of this idea of a gated process. Do this first, get this down. Then once you have that, go on to the next step. And it's not writing a business plan. That's entirely different. This is really building a solid foundation for your business once you know what your idea is. I'm also, Steps to Startup isn't, there's a little discussion around that, but it's assuming you know what you want to do. How do you get it right out of the gate?
Absolutely. Now you segued into something. We talked a little bit about the interviews that you conducted. Now let's talk about that 17 steps to a startup. And what I heard clearly is you have to have that solid foundation. And that begins with maybe doing your marketing research, or I'm just hearing from you from right now. That is coming in loud and clear. We don't have time to cover all 17 steps. And you can tell us a little bit about that, and again, how people get access to that information.
Sure. Yeah. So definitely the market research. Really, it all starts with go out and talk to customers. Do you even have a viable, if you can get 10 people excited about your concept, you may have something there. If those 10 people go tell 10 other people about your concept, then you really know you're onto something, essentially. But that's the first thing. And a lot of entrepreneurs kind of think they have a good idea, but they never really go talk to people about it because they're afraid somebody's going to steal their idea. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. People are too darn busy to steal your idea. And if you have something that's truly...
People are saying amen to that. Amen.
Yeah, go tell everybody. When I came up with the idea for Hera Hub, people thought I was crazy. I told everybody, I'm like, in line at Starbucks, I'm going to start this co-working space for women, I'm going to just tell the whole world, gosh darn it. Unless you have, some scientific discovery that, you can patent. I mean, that's, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a business concept that, no one's going to do it the same way I'm going to do it. And again, they're too darn busy to do it. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree with you. Yeah, and again, people who know me, I always talk about the black shoes. How many pairs of black shoes do you have, male or female? There is a different style for each person, and so your idea, while though it might be unique, somebody will execute it differently. Only you have your own mojo, and that's so much about sharing your idea. So, okay, don't be afraid to talk about it.
Perfect. Just a few of the other areas that we really get into, and we always advise, go talk to an attorney, go talk to a CPA, but, we lay out some of the pros and cons to business legal structure. We, give the reader an opportunity to have the tools to really do financial projections, which is an important part of knowing if you have a viable business. naming, you just ideas on how to name a business and branding, building an online presence. Again, just the real foundational pieces of structuring the business.
Fantastic. Now, as part of the book, you have the interviews, which I think are inspirational and motivational, and then it looked like you have that practical piece. Now, you started talking about that and that it actually steps you through it. So at the end of the 17 steps, or however long that takes, what was your goal in thinking about that? Because what I see this, again, and you touched on it earlier, that movement. A movement of the side gig, or I think of innovators. That's what I hear as innovators. Tell us that as we start to wrap up.
Sure. Just the premise behind the entire book is, again, it was an opportunity for me to share my entrepreneurial journey and the dozens of bumps in the road. And the reason why I wanted to do that is to really, show people we've all been through something. I mean, for me, it was one of the many things was getting hit by a fire truck at the end of the 8 freeway here in San Diego and breaking 27 bones in my arms, legs, and face, and being in a wheelchair, and all the things that go along with that, for somebody in their early 20s. And to show that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and we can recover and reinvent from things that happen to us. The storytelling of others was as much about the inspiration, but also some practicality in those exercises that some of the co-authors share, of helping people think through, again, what am I good at? What could I potentially take from my background, my expertise, and my passion, and work into a business, and then setting the reader up for success. It's not like, okay, now you have the idea, good luck. It's like, hey, let's help you build a solid foundation for your business. So that real practical piece at the end.
Okay, so what I heard, and I really hope the audience hears this, is that key of resilience.
Yes.
Because what I do know, as we age, the more resilient you are, the better quality of life you have at every age. And being able to come back after every, all those things that we wish would have worked out that didn't, and you're able to recover. And I don't know about you, the more setbacks I have, the quicker I bounce back. Those initial setbacks in my early 20s were probably some of the toughest, because I was young and hadn't had, I'll say, that many failures or near misses. The older I've gotten, not always easy, because you have to take things on the chin sometimes, but building up that resilience and thriving, as opposed to, I'll say, that embitterment, which we do see in some people. It makes people smaller sometimes. I do want to answer this one last question. How do you deal with completely contradictory advice that you get from people who you generally respect? It's great, then you get a clear pattern. However, what gets normally total contradictions? The mess of contradiction.
It's hard to answer that question without a little more context, but I can generally say, you are going to get contradictions. I mean, you can ask 100 different people for their opinion on a particular thing and get 100 different answers. So, you have to be, and that's what's important about, I'm not suggesting going to write a 60-page business plan tomorrow, but doing the hard work that it takes to really think through a concept. So when you get somebody pushing back on you, you can say, I acknowledge you for that opinion, and I appreciate your opinion. I've done a lot of research and I've done my homework, and this is what I'm finding, and being able to be clear in how you articulate what you're doing. And sometimes it's just saying, you know what, I appreciate that, but I'm not going to take it, because you are going to get a lot. When I first came up with the idea for Hera Hub, and I had so many issues getting our first space. I mean, it took me an entire year to actually secure a lease, and went through 2 failed lease negotiations. I mean, I had a lot of people telling me no, this is crazy. So you're going to get that. The people are going to tell you, I always say, when somebody tells you you're crazy, you're on the right path.
Okay, you heard it. That is some great advice. Don't let anybody stomp on your dreams when you have the vision,
Yes.
because that's the grit. That's what keeps you going back for more. We're ending our half hour here, and I'm respectful of your time. So as we close up, what piece of advice do you have for innovators, entrepreneurs, side gig? And then again, letting everyone know, I will have Felena's information, her website, her Twitter, her social media, so that you can connect with her, as well as that TEDx talk. So in closing out, Felena, what would you say, what would you like people to know? A takeaway, perhaps?
Yeah, because my world is that of female entrepreneurship, I'm constantly trying to encourage the women in our community to think bigger. We have a sign in each of our locations, a wall decal, as we have many, that says "Go big or go home." And obviously, we're playing on the fact that we're a co-working space. But I really want to inspire women to think bigger. I think we may, and I'm sure men have this problem too. Again, I live in the world of female entrepreneurship. We tend to play small when we shouldn't. We tend to doubt ourselves. We tend to run, I call it the hamster wheel in our head of like, am I doing the right thing? Questioning kind of thing. Be confident in who you are. And, I am definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. I was a C student. I, barely passed a lot of my classes, but I'm willing to work hard, and I'm confident enough in myself that I'm willing to take the risk and go for it. And I know I will figure it out. That's the one thing. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I have the confidence in myself to figure it out.
Cheers. So for anyone who's ever doubted themselves, you can, but you don't have to. And know that you're not the only one.
Yes.
So that's the insider secret right there. You're not the only one. Well, that's wrapping up Encore Chat. And today our guest was Felena Hanson, an entrepreneur and founder of Hera Hub, the co-working space in San Diego County, throughout San Diego County, and also in Washington, D.C. Again, that wraps up our show. I'll have Felena's details in the show notes on YouTube. So that's where you can find us. Thank you so much, Felena, for joining us. Thank you so much for the community who connected with us today. And I look forward to seeing you here next week. Again, thanks for joining us.
Bye, Judy.
Bye.